Now they're too hot shit there, and then they subcontract out somewhere else. Every time someone does well, they subcontract out to another shittier country. That shitty country does well, they subcontract to somebody else.
It's global gentrification.
Global gentrification. I like that.
Everybody out there, welcome to yet another exciting and dangerous episode of the SPS podcast.
Dangerous.
I am Sean Patrick Sullivan, and I am with someone who I want to be my co-host, but he is playing hard to get. His name is Randy Hughes. He's a brilliant thinker, writer, and stand-up comedian. And the sure sign of that is that everyone in this town hates him. And
everyone hates both of us.
Yes. And
we hate each other.
And I could not, and we're going to talk about stuff that's going on in the news, but first I have to tell you something.
What?
So I love this whole Yoji Yamamoto / hipster rabbi thing that I have happening. But what I've noticed is that when I wear my readers, do you remember the Van Halen video for Hot for Teacher?
Yeah, of course.
So my eyes look like that. Class dismissed. Dun, 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 dun. So I have to take these off. And also, I don't know about you, I'm not a summer person. I am much more of an autumn, and not just in terms of my coloring, but I'm so overheated, and all of my clothes are synthetic.
I'm overheated 365 days of the year, baby.
What's your favorite season?
I am a contrarian. If I'm cold, I bitch that I want to be hot. If I'm hot, it's too hot, then I want to be cooler. I hate winter though, so I'm sort of fall. I'm sort of spring into summer.
Spring, fall.
But then I will bitch about summer if it gets too hot. But I won't give a shit about global warming, so just my comfort is more important than global warming.
So let's get into it. I love global warming. I support it. I believe in it, and let me tell you why. First of all, humankind has always been subject to climate change. Now, this is not to deny that what we're doing now is accelerating the pace. However, my question is, why do we have a problem with global warming? Let's look at the fact that the people who are so concerned are what I would call anti-human. They think that there are too many people on this planet, which is a lie. We're at the precipice of a depopulation problem all over the world. They are anti-fossil fuels, which I'm not convinced are really fossil fuels. We don't know we've never drilled down more than 20 miles. We have no idea. Ancient civilizations have, I think they're still there. Breakaway civilizations, that's a whole other story. But here's the thing. If all of these global warming things come true, Canada is going to be the world's greatest superpower because we have all the fresh water, all the farmable land. It's all going to thaw out. Everyone will need us, which is why it's very important that Canada learn how to show some backbone. It's important that the Canadian military grows and that it gets more money because in 100 years, if these predictions come true and Canada thaws, if it hasn't yet evolved into a country with a culture that's something more than we're not American, the United States or Brazil or Russia or someone will take over. It's like not even a question.
Yeah.
Furthermore,
like a liquidation sale.
Furthermore, it's true that we will probably lose New York City and Venice and Miami, and that millions of people will die. But think about how many billions of people will be able to survive. You know, it's actually less misery. I am a firm believer in humanity's ability to build boats, floating cities, develop new technologies. I think that something puritanical and annoying about these anti-human activists is that, first of all, it's become a religion. It is a substitute for the Book of Apocalypse. The second thing is, I hope that's what it's called, the Book of Apocalypse. Maybe it's Avengers United.
What do you mean in the Bible?
That was a Mark Maron reference. Anyway, they seem to be obsessed with keeping everything exactly the way that it is, but everything is change. Everything is change. Your thoughts on the issue?
They are obsessed with things not changing, but at the same time, they want it to change based on their, models, their demographics, their asinine visions of the future. They say they basically want an apocalypse, but they don't want a religious apocalypse.
Yeah, you know what? That's an excellent point. That is a really excellent point, because what I perceive lurking underneath all of this climate puritanism is a secret desire or a secret wish that humanity self-destruct because they're so nihilistic.
Oh yeah, they just don't want it to be attributed to religion, that's all.
Yes.
Don't believe in God and destroy the world. We'll destroy the world in our own vanity, all right?
Exactly. Now, did you ever go through an environmentalist phase?
I had a silly hippy-dippy phase in my 20s and 30s when I was reading Chomsky. And I was trying to understand postmodern, those French guys. And I realized that I couldn't understand them. I thought I was stupid, but I realized Camille Paglia, the rock star feminist,
Yes,
taught us that they're full of shit. And they're unreadable prose that they write.
I also agree with her that post-structuralism, deconstruction, postmodernism, whatever you want to call it,
It's gobbledygook.
was probably very necessary at the time of the Parisian student riots of the late 60s and early 70s, because it was such a massively bureaucratic country with zero social mobility that these lunatic ideas admittedly did have the benefit of freeing things up. But you know what? As this is rolling out of my mouth, I realize that this all leads to Brigitte Macron. And maybe it's not a good idea that things ever became anti-bureaucratic.
Well, it always starts off wide-eyed and naive, and the revolution in different countries. I don't know enough about this stuff, but all I do know is that things are always bent out of proportion as years go by and decades later. Like, affirmative action was good when it started. Now it's ridiculous.
Was it good when it started?
Well, maybe, and maybe the first implementations of it, so people get. I don't know, but when it was in effect, when it was put into effect, it was a good thing probably. But like everything else, it gets perverted. It gets.
I don't think it was a good
politicized.
idea. Here's the thing: following World War II, Black men on their own, without any white people meddling in their affairs, were breaking into universities and Fortune 500 companies at a really, really good rate. Furthermore, I don't know what period of American history this is. It might be between World War I and World War II. If someone knows history better than me, please correct me. But there was a period where Black families were statistically more intact than white families.
Right.
And my reading of American history is that when Black people are left alone and they are not propagandized by a bunch of over-empowered Karens, that they do absolutely awesome by themselves.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's a product of like 30 years later, the Karens nonsense.
Well, here's the other thing.
That's all I mean.
Here's the other thing. Imagine that you have fought actual hatred and racism to become a VP at a Fortune 500 company, and everyone really, really respects you.
Right.
And then 3 years later, affirmative action happens, and now everyone kind of views you as being a charity case.
Right.
How disrespectful is that?
Yeah, no, I realize that. I just mean like decades later, then it's everything has gone apeshit crazy because it's all politicized. Then it loses any of its meaning and validity that it was enacted with. Yeah, that's all. That's all I mean.
I used to hire a lot of people, and it just so happens that I ended up hiring. Ended up hiring a lot of people who weren't straight, weren't white, weren't young. But my whole thing is, if you're sexy and you're chic and you're cosmopolitan, the way that you screen for potential employees is that you want a mix of opinions and backgrounds to make the product that you're selling better. It's not about charity. It's not about DEI. It's, I want someone who used to be poor. I want a Jew. I want a Latino.
No, I agree. Yeah.
And so I think that if we had gone with a national policy of increased sophistication and cosmopolitanism, that would have been a much better way to work things out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really do. Huh. It's silly to me now though the way things change. I mean, you talk about black. It's like the whole Cosby thing. I mean, honestly, when he was saying you have to have the strong American family, blah blah blah, and you have to stay home and raise your kid, and then he turns out to be a raper.
But he's a rapist who's also right about that.
That's the hilarious part. He's right about it, but he's a rapist. So okay.
The thing that I always wondered. So first of all, when I was a little kid, like 5, 6 years old, I loved Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids.
Oh, it was great.
But I hated Bill Cosby. I had this very early clairvoyant, psychic perception that there was something dark and evil and wrong about him. And when I watched the Cosby Show, which I loved, the glamorous Brooklyn townhouse.
It was awesome, yeah.
Oh my God.
But it was like science fiction at times.
So chic, so just so glamorous. And but I hated Felicia Rashad's character because she struck me as even more evil than him.
Really?
Then I fell in love with the first season of A Different World. And when Lisa Bonet got kicked out, now mind you, I was very young. None of this had come out. The very first thought I had was that Bill Cosby molested her.
No kidding. You thought that immediately?
Yes.
Wow.
I've had this feeling about a few people, and this brings me to what I know you're hungry to talk about, Elon Musk, because I very early had the same exact feeling about him. Now, I don't think that he's an evil person.
He's not at all.
But I will tell you that I am really, really disturbed by the fact that okay, so look, there are a few things that bother me. First of all, I love Joe Rogan, but I don't like it when he pumps up Elon Musk to the point of saying, well, we might as well have AI government. To the point of saying, he's a genius. The thing is, Elon Musk is in many ways retarded.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And by the way, I don't really know that I like the autistic spectrum being as big as it is.
It's
because
too wide.
There's a huge difference between people who are socially retarded,
yeah,
but like really genius at whatever they apply themselves to, which when I grew up was called being a genius.
That's right. It's like hyperactive children are being prescribed Ritalin when they're just children.
Okay, let's save that because I think the evidence is clear that so look, it's overdiagnosed.
That's all I'm saying.
It's overdiagnosed to a ridiculous
overcorrections,
degree.
Overdiagnosis.
But when you really do have a neurological problem, the younger you get on a stimulant, the more normal your brain develops.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not talking about a small percentage of that. I'm just saying, like everything else.
Well, parents are lazy.
Yeah. It's just easier.
And the alleged hyperactivity of boys is really not about boys. It's really about the feminization of education and the hatred of masculinity that runs through the left. But let's talk about Elon Musk. What an interesting episode this is already. So I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I love being here. I'm a little nervous.
Then why won't you be my co-host?
I'm a little nervous because I want to be on. I want to be intelligent and thought-provoking, and I don't want to repeat myself.
Okay, I want to really quickly tell you something,
sure.
Then we're going to talk about Elon Musk. So, this is me doing shop talk with you.
Okay.
On one hand, I'm like, oh, well, people want to see this, but, we're inherently interesting, so
that's right.
It's going to work.
And we're also arrogant.
My career has always been about achieving massive things for which I'm not formally trained and then burning out.
Yeah.
Last night I had a revelation, which is that I can. Oh, and the reason I do that is because, well, first of all, I'm bipolar, but the second thing is I love a good comeback story and the opportunity for reinvention. So, but what I realized last night, I won't go into the reasons why, but I realized that I can look back upon my comeback stories and the decisions that I made. This isn't working. This needs to be the new me. And I can actually, say every 3 months, I'm going to simulate a nervous breakdown. So last night, I went to a karaoke bar, and you wouldn't think I could get done there, but I wrote 3/4 of my business plan. It was very, very effective to get out of the house, as it were. And I made some changes. And so here's the thing. I'm not going to do 100 episodes this season like I planned. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to New York the middle of this month.
Oh, nice.
The day that I come back, I've booked a huge guest. I can't say who it is, but I love this person. I revere this person.
Okay.
This person is a gigantic inspiration to me. He's just, all of his values are in the right place. I'm so thrilled, but that's going to be my final episode. And I think it'll be like episode 40. Then I'm going to take the month of July to learn how to do lighting, because this lighting right now sucks. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going and I'm going to do like a lot of research, and all of these episodes that I'm not promoting at all, I'll promote them. Then when I come back August 1st, my new schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I shoot as early as possible, and then like as soon as the shoot's over, I jump right into, I have to edit this, I have to make title cards, I'm going to put that on X and that on Instagram and that on TikTok, and then I'll time everything to launch the next morning, which would be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 9 a.m. Okay, and the reason what does this have to do with you? I'll tell you what this has to do with you. So so the format's going to be that I'm going to be with each co-host once every 2 weeks. So hypothetically, in a 2-week sequence, Monday, Dahlia, Dr. Dahlia, Tuesday, Rev Doug, Friday, you, and then the next Monday, Gen X, and then the next Wednesday, Caleb the Tall, and then the next Friday is reserved for like the rotating guest.
Oh, I see.
So that's the format I'm doing. So I don't need an answer now, unless it's a yes, in which case you can tell me now. But that's my concept for season 2.
I like the lighting here. It's like high-end porn. Nice lighting.
I
like good lighting.
It is not like high-end porn.
Well, I like quality porn. I want to see light. I want to see window. I like high-end lesbian porn directed by women. Women are really good at directing lesbian porn. Men are probably better at heterosexual porn. Women are really good at lesbian porn. Because guys just want to watch women scissor and shit. But, I prefer a little more romance, and I like beautiful women in pornography. It took me 10 years to find hot women look like models, but are in lesbian porn.
I gave up porn along with sex.
I love
and all
good
of that
porn,
stuff.
quality porn.
Okay.
Good camera. No,
I'm
being serious.
Good
camera shots.
I know you're serious.
A storyline.
I know you're serious, and I like that you have standards in an area
I do.
where so many don't.
Yeah,
but when it comes to so when I used to enjoy seeing guys fucking on camera, my tastes were actually, I can't even say that that's not true, because here's the thing. So my taste in porn is rather feminine, in that I prefer comic book porn, or stories.
Yeah, you're like, okay, what, like anime, like that Japanese stuff? That's just
well, they're usually European.
Man, I can't stand European porn. I find it too angry. They're very angry. You ever watch Japanese
or
porn?
incesty?
You ever watch Japanese porn? Okay, that's
or demonic.
Off the chain, as the kids say.
But I don't do that anymore.
Demonic. What? Like a pentagram on the floor?
Yes.
Okay, too much.
Yes. All right, Elon Musk.
What is going on exactly? Please give me your nutshell.
So what happened?
Elon Musk. A bro followed or two bros? I don't know.
So here's what. My understanding. I don't like. I need to die this. My understanding was that Elon Musk headed Doge. By the way, Doge is a certain type of bureaucrat within the early Catholic Church. And so I wonder if there's a pun, because Elon Musk is quite punalicious. And my understanding from the outset is that his position was going to be temporary. And so earlier this week, or maybe it was late last week, when he decided, when there was the announcement that he was no longer involved, and it seemed very friendly, I was like, oh, well, this is what I was expecting. So my question for you is, did something happen that I don't know about that prompted Elon Musk to do this really like rude and inappropriate thing, which may also be true, we don't know, but the accusation is that Trump is in the Epstein files?
There are so many permutations to this kind of thing that's going on. You got characters, personalities, you have their quirks or foibles, the idiosyncratic behavior. You have the psychological factors balancing against each other. You have the real world issues of, but it would seem to me that you would want to ally yourself against your greater enemy, who you decimated in the last election. Maybe you might want to retain your power for the next election. and not think in 4-year cycles. Maybe.
But did Donald Trump say something earlier this week that prompted Elon Musk to do this?
I haven't been following it to that extent.
We need to find out.
I just keep seeing the headlines, but they're so not surprising. A guy in business and a guy ex in business who has obviously ambitions for higher office like Trump. I like Trump. I like both of them.
I love Donald
I
Trump.
think it's just a matter of the realities and the cold, hard, practical realities of being in office and getting things done collided against Elon Musk's
well,
ambitions.
Here's the thing.
He's not a saint. He came into the whole thing wanting to get rid of the Democrats so they wouldn't attack him if they got in power and reduce his contracts to nothing and practically deport him.
So here's the thing.
So it was survival instinct to get Trump in power too.
So Elon Musk is certainly brilliant.
Yeah.
And society is better for having him in it.
Of course. Yeah.
However, some of the things that he's done and said are highly disturbing to me. And if I was Donald Trump, I would never allow him to be in the administration because of it. Maybe silently consult.
A consultant, yes.
But okay, so first of all of the kids with all of the different mothers bothers me because it's either a lack of morality or common sense or affection for this ridiculous anti-human transhumanism thing, which I'm really opposed to. There's also this statement about there being more robots than people, and it's all going to be great, because something that Elon Musk never talks about, he says that he has admitted that AI can be dangerous, but he doesn't have the sophistication of an artist or philosopher in terms of the responsibilities that we as human beings have when we choose to create life, because you can't tell me that it's not life. And the other thing that bothers me is when Trump said that he wanted to buy Greenland from Denmark, it's obvious to me that the inspiration was the technocrat movement that Elon Musk's grandfather belonged to, because the technocracy that they imagined, its hallmark was the purchase of Greenland. It's just too much of a coincidence. Then there's the fact that he was openly abusing recreational / pharmaceutical drugs throughout, leading in the unhinged behavior like the chainsaw and whatnot. So, I've seen Peter Thiel, as someone who has abused every type of amphetamine there is, every type of central nervous stimulant that there is. There have been interviews with Peter Thiel where it seems to me like he's Adderalled up, but he has it. But maybe, first of all, maybe I'm wrong. Second of all, he does have a tremendous sense of reserve and propriety. So if he needs to take out Adderall to do his job, then let him do it. And by the way, if he's single, I'm interested. But there's just so much stuff. But I have a real problem with the way that in contemporary culture, we idolize scientists so much. And where is the artist in the administration? Where is the philosopher? It's not distributed evenly in that very Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci-esque way. At least not that the public can see. Thoughts?
That is true. That is very true. It's a very complex situation which doesn't lend itself well to clickbait culture, because Elon does something, they say this. Trump does something, they say that. But at the end of the day, I hate that phrase at the end of the day. I had this girl I was in love with, the trans lady I told you about. She used to say things like, it's not in the day, is the day's conclusion to the events that
you know what? Every time that I say it a lot, and every time that I say it, I hate myself a little.
Yeah, at the end of the conclusion of the day's events, or so she used to say things like that. I find the whole thing ludicrous. It's like he used to warn about the dangers of AI. He talks about underpopulation and we need more people. So he's having more babies with more women. Now, is he just a horny guy because he's like Iron Man, right? He's the Tony Stark, the super Marvel hero. All the tech bros are. And why Mark Zuckerberg is doing UFC now, and he's all buffed because he's trying to kiss Trump's ass now? Yeah, he's doing UFC. He's no longer a dork.
It's okay, so it's stuff like this that leads me down these rabbit holes where I'm in bed at midnight, freaked out. Because here's the thing. There's this psychologist, I don't remember his name, I was exposed to him through Jordan Peterson, and he said that love is not all you need, that the primary need that human beings have that makes everything else possible is understanding that you exist and understanding your place in the context of the universe, which means having a view of the universe, which is why when you become an atheist, you end up becoming really rabid about something else because we just think religiously naturally. So,
then you become ideologically captured and you have your own brand of fundamentalism.
Absolutely.
Irrespective of religious fundamentalism.
Yes.
And it's just still a joke. We only believe in this, we don't believe in it. Well, guess what? You're adhering to a hardcore religion yourself, like Sam Harris.
Yes.
Who's gone insane also.
Well, Sam Harris is a perfect example of what happens when your mother loves you too much.
Bill Maher.
And you're handsome.
I love Bill Maher, but he's not. Did you see the interview with Bill Maher and David Mamet? He was attacking Mamet for his views in Israel because Mamet's a pro-Israel guy, and he has a firm line in the sand, line of demarcation. They were invaded. They are striking back. That's it. Like Douglas Murray said, how did World War II happen? They invaded Poland. And it was like, when I heard that, it was like, it's so simple, so beautiful, so brilliant that you could surmise it like that, irrespective of the social justice movement that needs to attach everything else to it when it comes to empathy to terrorists, like the Hamas, fanboys for Hamas in the LGBT community.
Absolutely. So there's two things that we could do right now. All right. So the first thing that we could do is use Elon Musk's son/daughter to talk about this LBGTCIA rainbow flag Pride Month nonsense. Also going into Brigitte Macron, male or female, and why that matters, because it's not just about salacious gossip. There actually is a case to be made that this is the prophecy, the fulfillment of the Manchurian Candidate. Or we could go in the direction of talking about, damn it, you just brought it up, Israel. Because trans issues are Israel, because I feel like what we need to do is talk about something light and fluffy.
Right. Something that the kids will get under. I love that. I love it. I love my favorite, someone's window, it says, Queers for Palestine. I love it. It's like, okay, sure. They are so far removed from reality. If it wasn't so harrowing, it would be funny. It would be a Monty Python moment. Useful idiots to the 10,000th degree, right?
So here's the thing. So from a purely informational perspective, the way that this whole I just call it the sexual minority-based tribalism conglomerates too many different things. Heterosexual, homosexual is about orientation to other. Transgender, transvestite, transsexual, two of those categories need to come back, by the way, is really about your own identity, not the identity of others. And then we have all of these disgusting white people, mostly women, who are for some reason proud of their kinks. Kinks, by the way, not being hot unless they're secret and dirty. Okay, and then I also think that there's a fourth element that's about, like, where did this furries thing come from? Where did this dog?
Oh my God! Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love sex. I love filthy sex. I'm not having any right now, but I look forward to coming back to it. That's
the anthropomorphization of the culture.
But do you think it's also about sexualizing children?
It is that as well. And it also goes to this total hypocritical, is it switchback, is that the right term, or fork in the road kind of thing? Where, okay, so the LGBT community, it's okay to...
By the way, for those of you who haven't figured it out already, I am a full-time homosexual. That's currently on pause in terms of the sex part. But
I'm overcompensating madly. But
okay. But so when I talk about this, I'm talking as a critic from the inside, because as far as I'm concerned, despite my marvelously faggy voice, I am, I guess, what you would call a masculine homosexual man. I don't like the word gay because I'm not happy, and we've been erased. And I'm perceiving there being a huge lesbian comeback. Thank you, Jillian Michaels. But there seems to me something very conspiratorial and incredibly assimilationist to the point of fundamentalist when you have countries like Iran taking gay people and forcing them into transgender reassignment surgery because everything has to be about heterosexuality, and this whole thing of chopping the breasts off of 13-year-old autistic girls.
Yeah.
Okay. So so I actually view the integration of, and by the way, I want to tell you something. I've met a lot of healthy trans people, and there are certain trans actors and singers, and I'm like, oh my God, they're so pulled together, they're magical. It's almost like they're better than normal. But the people that I'm talking about are the activists who are speaking on behalf of all of these people.
Yeah, the white soccer moms, yeah.
Who, no, they're speaking on behalf of transgender people who don't actually agree with them, but they're kind of manipulated into silence because they've grown up or they've transitioned inside of a culture that makes them overly dependent on their tribal community.
Right.
So anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's fascinating because the LGBT community says, oh, okay, you can glorify your sexuality and put makeup on and be a woman, even though you're a trans. You're a trans. Is it transvestite, transgender? So it's,
I
don't understand that designation.
It's transsexual.
Okay, so you can glorify your sexuality.
I'm sorry, no. The current term is transgender.
Okay, you can glorify your sexuality by putting makeup on and wearing slutty clothes and heels. Go, girl. A white woman does it. A heterosexual white woman, she's internalizing the patriarchy. She's feeding into the male gaze, the bias of pornography.
Well, what about the fact that social workers, bureaucrats, and other nosy Nancys are I'm really going to need to use Riverside's feature where they edit out all the ums and ahs because I'm a mess right now. But the glorification and the acceptance as inevitable of sex work. Yeah. It's almost like there's this conspiracy of social workers trying to create MK Ultra like sex dolls for bureaucrats to use. It's repulsive to me.
And why is it that sex workers don't give a shit if you call them hookers, hoes, or sex workers, but it's the other ladies or men or gay people or whatever community is speaking on behalf of them saying, no, you are marginalizing that community. That community doesn't give a shit what they're called.
No, what they're really doing is marginalizing the community. Let me tell you something. I don't believe in communities. I believe in populations.
I hate this term,
My
community.
problem with the idea of community is that it is fundamentally suffocating and anti-individual.
I just use it because it's like a designation.
I know.
We need labels.
I'm not criticizing.
No, I'm just saying that we need labels.
I actually think that you're absolutely correct in the way that you're using it, because you're using it to articulate community as conceptualized by someone else.
Yeah.
Right? So your usage is absolutely appropriate. But don't you think it's strange that the idea of being a tomboy has absolutely evaporated?
Okay, what happened to that? I love tomboy women. My friend suggests, because you're gay, Randy, because you're a fag. So my first stand-up comic friend, Andrew Evans of Nova Scotia, who hates me. A lot of people hate me. A lot of people hate you.
Yes.
But hey, the most interesting people are the ones everybody hates. Okay? Yeah. No, that is so... Okay, say what you were just saying, and I'm sorry, I'm losing my consciousness here.
The general theme that I'm getting to is
all over the place.
So I believe that homosexuality is an evolutionary adaptation that ejects people from church, family, and mainstream culture such that they can operate on the periphery, solving problems that you can't really take care of because child rearing and heterosexuality and normal jobs.
Oh, the tomboy. Yeah,
hold on.
Sorry.
Are you like, it's just too much work. You can't do it. So you have my observation is, and I'm not an evolutionary scientist by any means, but my observation is that, so this is going to be really offensive. Homosexuality to me is acceptable. Male homosexuality is acceptable.
Right.
If you are contributing to the building, maintenance, and advancement of culture and civilization, which means you're an architect, you are a designer, you're a writer, you're a politician. And lesbians, I have some preliminary observations, but I think that adopting children who other people abuse or don't want is a potential evolutionary role. Outside of these enormous values to contribution, which in my own separatist private mind lead me to believe that homosexuals are superior. It's
Well, they probably are. They advance the culture artistically and culturally.
Well, no, not anymore though, because now
They-
gays are so far behind the curve. But
they used to.
But here's my controversial point of view is that homosexuality is perfectly acceptable. And by the way, I hate being validated. I don't need anyone else's opinion.
Right.
I kind of like it when people are scared of me.
You don't want a lobby group, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want a bunch of I don't like heterosexual women in gay bars.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a place for poppers, meth, steroids, and blowjobs. But anyway, the whole point is we've gotten away from tomboys, we've gotten away from sissies, and I see a real similarity between the way that homosexuality is addressed in certain Middle Eastern countries with this radical. Because you have this incoherent movement saying, be whatever you want, put a dog's tail up your ass and walk on the street in front of someone who's just immigrated here from India, and they have to look at your visual vomit. And that's what bedrooms are for. And it's incoherent because on one hand, you can do all of this, but on the other hand, everything about being transgender as it's currently being discussed by its self-appointed experts is total gender conformity. Total gender conformity.
Yeah, and they're hypocrites because they have such a problem with the male voracious appetite of sexuality in gay men. The lobby groups, the self-appointed cognoscenti.
Like religious right, or are you talking
No,
about
I'm talking about the transgender activists and the LGBT community, as it were. They have a problem with males' voracious appetite, heterosexually, but especially the gay. They don't understand the male gaze, as Camille taught us. Well, that's obviously a reference to Greek history and Roman history, but they have a problem with sexuality unless it's their definition of it. So it's okay to teach 5-year-olds about butt plugs, but it's wrong for a guy to go to a bathhouse
now here's the thing.
be a Republican.
So here's the thing. This isn't me becoming a conservative Christian.
Like Milo, yeah.
Is that what he's done?
No, I'm just saying Milo Yiannopoulos looks like the kind of guy who probably went to a bathhouse and doesn't give a shit. And he's gay and he's conservative.
I don't know.
In the sense that he has a voracious appetite.
I miss him.
In the sense that he's voraciously excited about male sexuality.
Yeah. But here's the thing. So the current version of sexual minority and feminist identitarianism is resolutely anti-sexual. And this is I really want you to comment because you were the one who noticed that all of the more conservative the female podcasters are, the sexier they are, the stronger they are, and the more men like them.
Yeah, Bridget.
So please talk about that.
Bridget Fetisi, she was just saying that. She's rolling her eyes, going, "You don't understand men. The Democratic Party does not understand men." And they put in this whole millions of dollars into this research study to understand the male mindset and how they can get them back to the party so they can usurp the Republican domination.
Maybe by being about labor and fairness and class.
Yeah, and understanding men she said men are very simple creatures. Okay, and she's rolling her eyes because she's a tomboy chick. She says she calls herself a reform slut or something. You know, she's She was a heroin addict, but she worked in the real world. Yes, she was a heroin addict.
Oh my God.
She was in a halfway house at 19 years old. Her parents put her into back in the 70s. She's our age, so in the 70s and 80s.
She's that old.
She's that old. She looks great, but
wow, I didn't know
she's
that.
sober. She's not on heroin. She's not on drugs. She's off of sex. For every guy she used to lay, now she reads a book. That's what I ascribe to, and I say that all lovingly because I love her. But she says that the men don't understand men. And they don't understand male motivations and male standings with other men, and especially to women. This is why tomboy women get along with them so well, but this is also why tough women like her, or Megyn Kelly, or Liz Wolfe.
Oh my God, I would marry Megyn Kelly.
Liz Wolfe, who writes for the Federalist, she's a conservative. She's a ball-busting broad. She's tough. She wouldn't care if we say broad, Or Carol Markowitz, whose family came from Soviet Union. She lives in New York City. And after COVID, she was saying, this is communism, what's going on here with the government's edicts about where we can go, where we can't go.
Keep talking. I have to get some nicotine
There was tons of women, Amy Alcon, all these brilliant conservative women today who are just ball-busting, and they say what they mean and mean what they say, and they're sexualized beings.
And their male followings are gigantic.
You know what, Liz Wolfe? One of them was saying to Bridget in the interview, she was saying, yeah, tons of guys come up to me in these conservative meetings that I go to and talks for because they, thank you, because they think, and Bridget says, would they go there and meet women? Because they're having a hard time meeting women. Young men who are not even political, but are sick and tired of being infantilized and treated like less than human creatures. They're tired of being talked down to, and they can't find women today because a large percentage of women are in those communities.
Well, I have to admit, Randy, when I go back to having sex, it's going to work out really well for me.
It probably will.
Yes.
So basically, they're having a hard time. So she's made a joke saying, they're probably going there to meet women, hot conservative women. I mean, look at Fox News. That's everywhere now.
Do you know that this is the first time in human history?
I love it. Huh?
This is the first time so there's this revival of Christianity, specifically Catholicism, that's happening in the United States and from what I hear in France. Italy seems to be returning to its traditional values as well. What's really interesting to me is that this is the first time in human history that men have been more religious than women.
It's probably, I don't know. It doesn't surprise me.
So interesting.
It doesn't surprise me as you say it.
It's so interesting.
I have no knowledge of it, but it makes perfect sense, though. It's like, why does a guy work in like Tim Allen? I love Tim Allen. Women calling me, he's sexist, misogynistic. Camille Paglia loves Tim Allen. She loves stand-up comics.
Why does anyone have a problem with Tim Allen?
Because it does show the male bravado, the male braggadocio, working on cars. And yet women love him. But the small community that represents, they're a lot mouthier than the people they represent. The people they represent have normal lives and actually have to go to work. So they're not as mouthy. But that small community that speaks for them is mouthier. That's all.
Let's talk about, I want you to know why all of this matters to me. Because I opened this episode. No, I didn't open this episode. I opened another episode. It's all a blur. But, as I prepare to enter the world of X and TikTok, I don't want to be combative. I seem to be particularly combative today, which I enjoy. Here's the thing. I love doing it. And as a stand-up comedian, I like being offensive and I like pushing buttons. And to me, that's what makes it art. I'm not my self-esteem isn't low enough that I need to make a room full of people laugh.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I want to go into podcasting and other types of content creation with more of this is a great idea. This is someone who I love. Oh, did you hear about this great thing? Because as far as I'm concerned, you can't change people, and what you really should be interested in is the next generation, not in an indoctrination sort of way, but just putting out there what you're offering. That said, I don't know how to get, and by the way, this desire kind of killed stand-up comedy for me because my stand-up comedy doesn't work unless it's combative. Right. So I'm in this spiritual quandary because I really do believe that what comes out of your mouth manifests.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's so funny and it's so much fun to do.
Well, look at Sandra Bernhard. She had a hard time existing within stand-up community because she was more of a holistic performer, culturally speaking, as well. I mean,
She was an entertainer in the classic sense of
she
the
could
word.
talk shit. She could tell jokes. She could hold herself with.
She could sing. She could act. She
I
could
didn't even
model.
know she did comedy. I had that trans lady I was hanging out with told me all about her, made me watch videos and shit. I didn't even know. I thought she was a singer, actor. I thought she was a smart ass mode, cultural provocateur. I didn't realize she can do comedy. She can do with the best of them. But she's like old school burlesque kind of performer.
So by the way, Sandra Bernhard.
And I love Sandra Bernhard.
I love her so much. Sandra Bernhard, let's talk about the importance of talent in comedy, because just pushing buttons without also being funny is, to me, really bad and should be canceled.
Yeah.
But so I used to be pro-choice without limits. But now I kind of think that there's this, we need to think about, okay, so if we devalue or are so quick to toss aside potential life, what does it do to our humanity in other places? And in Canada, I think one of the major manifestations is that you can apply for and get approved for assisted suicide for migraine headaches and depression. And mind you, there are some provinces that will allow depressed people to be offed without first offering electroconvulsive therapy, which is disgusting to me, because in its new form, electroconvulsive therapy, also known as Carrie Fisher therapy, is a godsend.
And yet they'll call people who advocate for that therapy barbaric.
Yes. Okay.
There you go.
That's
beautiful.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is because of and by the way, I believe that everyone has the right to complain about everything, right? You don't need to be within the group in order to complain. Like, I am open to hearing from anyone. I will never say to anyone, you don't have the right to say that. So Sandra Bernhard tells this joke, and on one level, I think it's really disgusting. It's like, she's anti-Trump, so she was saying, I don't want him to be my president. I think I'm going to stay right here in New York City and I'll have an abortion. I'm not even pregnant. But the thing is, the way that I didn't really do the joke justice. I love the joke. And I love the woman who wrote the joke, because even though it's not in my particular ethical wheelhouse, it was performed perfectly. It was so daring. It's a really interesting point of view. And unlike a lot of people, it's very clear that it's ironic.
Right. Well, there's two things going on there. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with it. Is it done well, and is it performed artistically? And whether you agree or disagree with it, it's a craft. And did she do her job? As being an entertainer. People parse this stuff way too much, in my opinion. I think plumbing is the same thing as comedy. If you can't fix a pipe, well, you're not going to be hired. You can't tell a joke, you're not going to be hired. It's the same thing. She said that famously in one of her bits. I'm on first name basis with my plumber, and on the Christmas day.
Herminio is my house painter.
Yeah, and on Christmas Day when I got a flooding floor, I know who to phone, and she uses that name. He'll come and and then she does that sardonic look on her face, but that's brilliant. I agree with that. Yeah, exactly, with that look. And I think she's sexy as hell,
I think she's so beautiful.
I think she grew into her looks. I think she looks.
I think she was always
better.
hot.
Well, she always had a weird kind of look to her, like gangly kind of thing. But she's grown into her looks, I think. Yeah.
I think that so Revlon was doing this campaign in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was like about powerful, Amazonian, brilliant, strong women. And they used various models, but none was sexier or more luscious than Miss Sandra Bernhard. Okay, so back to this whole thing of, like, I don't want to be combative, but I am talking about these trans activists with whom I don't agree and don't want to be lumped in with.
Yeah.
And I do want to talk about things like Brigitte Macron's weird past. But the reason that I talk about it is that I firmly believe, so I don't know if there is some sort of demonic conspiracy to desexualize and take away the agency of the property of all human beings, so that there's like a wealthy class that gets to live the high life and a slave class that's inching towards being able to reproduce non-sexually. Or if there's no conspiracy theory, but there's something about social contagion that's really allowing a lot of dangerous ideas to form. So this is a genuine concern of mine, and I don't know how to express it other than in a combative way.
I like that second part about social contagions. That makes a lot of sense to me for some
Yeah.
reason. I do like that because that is so perfect when you think about it. As to the leaders, political parties or leaders of cultural groups, and you see all of this manifesting in the greater populace, and it's almost like it's a playbook they're adhering to, and the factions go against each other because everybody needs to be in these tribal groups like we discussed earlier that we hate being labeled as communities.
Do you think that ideas and thoughts and opinions exist beyond human beings, that they actually are like invisible life forms?
Ephemeral. I can never say that word. Ephemeral. I can never say that word. Ephemeral. Yeah, I do. Like Jordan Peterson mentioned that in a podcast once, that you don't have ideas; ideas have you. Huh?
I
love that. It's like you're picking things out of the universe. It's like that David Lynch thing where he said you're casting into a sea of consciousness, because he was a big believer in transcendental meditation, which I think is kind of too woo for me. I tried meditation. I can't sit still long enough to do it. I did it 20 minutes a day for about 6 months, and it is
take a benzo.
It is great, benzo. Yeah, take a benzo. But no, but how can people be so captured by these idiotic social contagions that then speak for them in their respective groups?
Well, the answer in my cosmology is
Christ.
that ideas. So I'm not going to get into the Jewish conception of words creating rather than describing reality. It's too complicated.
Numerology, symbolic value, numerology.
I'm not well studied enough on it. But I will say that I do believe that there is a collective consciousness. I do believe that it's not a good thing or a bad thing. The reason human beings really need to focus on individualism rather than collectivism is that there's already a collective force pushing down on our brains and our mouths.
Right.
And the collective consciousness contains every idea that there is. Therefore, there are good ideas and there are bad ideas.
Right.
So, and when I look at what causes misery and prevents people from achieving their full potential and glory and from creating heaven on earth, that's a Belinda Carlisle reference.
I love the way you access that. That's beautiful. That's so fucking beautiful. You combine the Go-Go's too. That's perfect. That's a Camille Paglia.
And Diane Keaton directed.
That's a Camille Paglia strain of thought, which I do appreciate.
Thank you. But I really do see this as being. I hate to be all Tucker Carlson. By the way, you look a little bit like him.
Well,
I love your new haircut.
Thank you. I got to introduce you to Nadia. 52 Barton Street East. That's a free ad for her.
What's the name of the venue?
My Beauty or something. My Beauty. I don't know. She's in that dingy ass part of town across the street from Food Basics on Barton Street.
Yeah, but there's lots of good stuff happening on 52. Barton Street.
No, she's dynamic. You like her.
Okay.
She's a classy broad.
But I hate to sound all Tucker Carlson because he already does that much better than I could ever do it. But I really do feel like, where there is this thing between chaos and order, light and dark, good and evil, and a lot of these ideas are really evil.
But I think he gets trapped in that thing where he's a little too of the supernatural infecting our collective consciousness or collective unconsciousness.
He's too mystical for you?
I think he's too mystical in that he attributes everything to these higher kind of concepts that these groups are then warring. It's like warring factions of warring gangs of ideology against each other.
Okay, so here's the thing. I actually agree with him on almost everything. Israel's not an area of agreement, and that's fine. But I don't have his level of certainty. I'm always questioning whether these things are conspiracies or manifestations of the collective consciousness. I'm not sure.
I don't have the certainty either. That's why we are who we are. I don't have the certainty at all.
But I know that it's happening, and I know that there
of course.
So I'm like, so Marcia McLuhan says, who cares what the author meant? What matters is the fact that you're reading it and you take it a certain way. In my favorite Madonna interview of all time, I've mentioned this in like 1 million episodes already, when someone said to Madonna, what does so-and-so album or song or video mean? She said, who cares what I meant?
I agree with that, and I disagree with that. I like I'm kind of schizophrenic about the whole thing. I believe in the auteur theory when it comes to the culture, when it comes to film directors, because I really like really good film directors, really interesting people. They're smart, they're funny, they're decisive, which sounds kind of stupid. Obviously, they're decisive, they're directors, they make decisions. But that's just why they're so interesting, because they can make 15...
They manifest realities.
They manifest reality.
But the question is, where does that vision come from? Is it biological? Is it inherent in the brain?
Yeah.
Or like memory, is creativity out there, and the talent of an artist is to operate as an antenna?
Right. The intent of the culture, like Marcia McLuhan said that, the intent of the culture. But at the same time, he says that about meaning being what nebulous? Is that a good word for meaning? Like Madonna would say in that interview you were saying, that she would say, it's up to you. I don't care what the lyrics mean. You interpret it for your own meaning.
Madonna's also,
I'm kind of conflicted.
Yeah. Madonna has also said that the more meanings you can get out of a work of art, the better the work of art is, because the role of art is to make people think.
But then those postmodern assholes don't believe in anything when it comes to a vision of someone who created something to have a thought process in order to make it be brought to fruition.
That's because it's tyranny of the average.
So they don't believe in hierarchies. They don't believe in meritocracy.
Do we need to have this conversation? I don't mean that in a nasty way.
No.
But I kind of feel like we've won the culture war.
No, I know. It's okay. No, it's just like I'm kind of living in not a bubble, but I'm kind of living in, people say the culture war's over, but I don't know if it truly is. Like Harvard, they still have their self-entitlement ass and attitude that they shouldn't lose funding. Even like, why is it nobody can learn?
Why do wealthy private universities get government money?
Okay, that's a good question.
Why?
That's a good question. But the problem is that why does no one ever learn anything from something that happens to them? No one ever blames themselves first and then says, maybe we should learn something from this. No, since I hate Trump, I hate policies of Trump, therefore I'm right and he's wrong. Maybe he has a point. Maybe out of 50 things he says, maybe he has a point for about 25 of them. Maybe. If you can take away your hostility towards everything Trump, maybe you'd learn something.
Yeah.
What a concept.
Well, the thing that I really loathe about American politics is that there's one side that's rather outlandish and creative and bold, and they're coming to the table with ideas. And I'm talking about the right, of course, and the American right will make fun of people on the left, but that's not what they're busy with ideas. As someone who used to be a registered Democrat, what bothers me is not only the lack of focus on labor, fairness, class, which is really the proper, I want there to be a very strong Democratic Party, because I don't like the idea of, look, my side is my side right now, because I feel like my side is the side that culture needs. But in 10 years, I might want to go back to being a Democrat if this spins out of control. I mean, if this does become fascist, I'm not going to sit there and approve of it. I'm going to switch sides. But I haven't seen any Democrats have like an actual idea, like, oh, here's a new way. Let's get rid of welfare and do guaranteed minimum income. I mean, they have, but I don't like the way it's been positioned. There's no ideas as to how to fix education. There's no ideas. Where are the ideas?
May I?
You can do whatever you want.
No, may I just, it's just you gave me a little opening here.
Go for it.
And I want to share something with you, which I was very intrigued by.
Okay.
I've been obsessed for some reason with doing research on prisons. And I don't know why. I've just been reading these Reddit strains and these articles and the abuse and solitary confinement and how horrendous it is. I learned about this woman named Leanne Bursch. in North Dakota who went on a fact-finding mission because she was fed up with the prison system, what was going on, because even hardcore Republicans don't know what to do anymore because there's so much violence, so many drugs, so many murders, even the staff are being attacked left and right, the dangerous conditions people are living in, the controversy over solitary confinement. So they went on a fact-finding mission to Norway. How can we improve the prison system?
If this is the story I think it is, I want you to talk about it for an hour.
Leanna Birch. She's now in the corporate sector, but she works still in the prisons.
What did she discover?
She was in charge of the North Dakota prison system, I believe. I don't know her official title, but Leanna Birch. And Bree Williams is a lady. I'm just saying, this is an example where social justice has a point. A point of contention.
Absolutely. And that's the stuff that I want Democrats to
And I don't care
on.
if you change your name. Like, I hate this whole thing with chairman, chairperson. Who gives a shit? But she said, and the large community of the new way of doing things, we're going to call it a rehabilitation center instead of prison.
Good.
That's good.
But what
I think that's wonderful.
In Norway?
She discovered that they taught her a whole new way of thinking of prisoners. They said to her and to their team that went up there, and you're talking hard scrabble Republican guys who had their sea change of opinion. The way you treat them, you talk to them, instead of calling by numbers, you call them by their names. You talk to them 2-3 times a day, you hang out with them. You interact with them, you play games with them, you do sporting events with them, you do recreational things. You try and erase the structure of prisoner and warden. You try and create a community inside. You change the colors. You change, instead of a drab gray wall, put some color into it. Have a fish tank where everyone is responsible to feed the fish. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant, beautiful system, and she enacted it.
Because it's about re-socializing people.
Yes, it's beautiful. Now, about rehabilitating people to be good neighbors.
But here's the thing. Isn't the Norwegian prison system privatized?
I don't know enough about it. All I know is that they did have a lot of issues with it, and they were hardcore like the Americans, and we're just as bad. But they had a change of opinion, and they had a change of mindset, a sea change, and they started enacting these policies where it's like a college dorm almost. They give inmates cooking materials, they give them keys to their thing. The basic tenet was they're already in prison. They've lost their freedom. We don't have to be punitive about it. It's beautiful. North Dakota, Governor Newsom, San Quentin is now going to be called Rehabilitation Center.
Look.
It's fascinating what's going on.
It is fascinating. I've been in jail. Have you been in jail?
Never, but I fear and I'm interested I'm interested in the concept of people losing their freedom. Because I'm not doing enough with my life, and I'm thinking, well, people whose lives are cut off at the knees, they can't do anything. So it's interesting.
Well, prison gave me freedom. Jail gave me freedom.
You mentioned that, yeah. What did you mean by that?
So my life, I was homeless, and I was crazy, and I was having hallucinations, and I was having sex with 3 different guys a day, and I was afraid of my stuff getting stolen. So my casual, occasional usage of methamphetamine became a constant occupational necessity because I didn't want my stuff being stolen. And what jail gave me was the freedom to reset my circadian rhythm. So I always woke up at 7 and I always went to bed at 11. It gave me the freedom not to have to steal a sandwich from Loblaws Maple Leaf Gardens and feel horrible about it. It gave me the time to get as many notebooks as I wanted and as many pencils as I wanted to spend 3 weeks writing down every single goal I had between that moment and the day I die. It gave me the freedom to learn how to use humor to deal with people that I'm terrified of. And it, rather than eating away at my self-confidence, it gave me self-confidence because I did a really good job of berating and yelling at a warden in front of everyone in a way that simultaneously made him angry. But I'll tell you the story sometime. But he was working so hard to suppress his laughter.
That's hilarious.
Which I love.
That's beautiful.
That was the moment when I decided to become a stand-up comedian. That
beautiful.
was the moment.
That's incredible.
It was a really okay. I'm going to tell you.
No, I love it.
So can I tell you the story?
Right. You mentioned it, but I don't know the details.
In the local jail, there's this assumption that you've been there before.
Yeah, and then depending on how you
It's
interact.
very weird because the people who work there don't tell you how things are. They yell at you if you don't do things the way that it's supposed to be. And what happens then is that, much like children who have absent or evil parents, everyone in the prison system becomes rehomed, dehomed, because you're only getting advice from hardened criminals who have been there a lot. So I didn't know that that all you had to do in order to make a phone call was to reach your hand through an opening in a door and pull the phone over, and that and I didn't know that. And so when I kept asking for the right to call my mother or a lawyer, no one said to me, "Oh, the phone's right over there. Whenever you're out of your cell, that's when you can use it." They just said, "We'll work on it." So after this warden, who, by the way, was really hot, he had a silver mustache. He was super muscular. I could see tattoos through his skin-tight white button-down. So I had asked him 3 times, once a week for 3 weeks, and he kept saying, "I'll take care of this tomorrow." It never happened. Then he came up to me and he said, "Sullivan, I really want to put, it's a cell built for 2. I want to put a 3rd guy in there and I want you to be okay with it." So we're in front of people, right? And I said, "Are you kidding? I've been asking for my 1 phone call for 3 weeks. 3 weeks you've been saying it'll be the next day. You never come around. I still haven't had my call. You can't just walk around here all roided out and tattooed and hot thinking that you can coast on your looks." And the reason why I love that moment so much was he was either aroused or complimented. He obviously thought it was hilarious. And he didn't know what to do.
Humor is disarming. Right?
So it was like my greatest moment. And I still think he's the hottest guy I've ever seen in my life. But anyway.
What's interesting, though, is that everyone's shitting on Newsom, and he probably deserves 90% of it, with the COVID response and his totalitarian instincts. But what's interesting is that I like to see all points of view because I'm trying to be like you. I don't want to be captured. I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's not so deluded. Maybe he means well, but I don't know. But this is a wonderful thing to take the most destructive prison in the history of the world, San Quentin, and turning it upside down into a rehabilitation center is beautiful.
Newsom's saving grace.
So I don't know.
Newsom's saving grace is that he's such a narcissist and he's so self-involved that if he can be convinced of something, he will do an amazing job of selling it.
Well, yeah, I don't know the motivations, but
really is. No, but the thing is, I don't mind when leaders, I'm not like most people. I don't mind when leaders are narcissists.
All I know is,
I don't mind when they're psychopathic. And I certainly don't mind if they're self-interested. All I matter is, do I like the output of the work?
Yes.
That's the only thing that matters to me.
Okay, so you're going to have like a feng shui thing in prison? Sounds good. You're going to respect people? Now, they can't go to the full extent like Norway does because they don't have the same integration of races that we have in North America with gangs and war and leaders of gangs.
Let me tell you something. That whole conflict between races, that is. So there's conversations.
Is that a real thing or not?
So there's
I don't know.
So there's okay. So
I know everything from Do the Right Thing.
Yeah. So there's conversations about the deep state.
Yeah.
But there's a deep state within the correctional system.
Is there?
And the deep state within the correctional system exists as this informal, unwritten, unacknowledged, but self-evidently present. It's almost like when you're a guard, you become captured by a set of really toxic beliefs. One of the main, and I spoke to a lot of guards, one of the main ones being, if we actually rehabilitate people, we'll be out of jobs. And these are people who have fundamentally working class attitudes and ethics, and they are the type of people who want to stick to one career because they don't want their job to be the most important thing in their life. the problem is for most of them, they get into it not realizing how difficult it's going to be. Because I am very critical of guards, but on the other hand, like the police, I don't like the police. I don't like the way that the police operate. On the other hand, they're being asked to do way too much. It's like 3 different jobs.
Yeah, and would you trust a social worker to show up at your house on Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. to investigate a crime?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They operate between the hours of 9 and 5 barely, never mind on weekends.
So my observation is that the racial thing is manufactured by guards in order to ensure that prisoners are as tribal, violent, and deadly as possible when they get out. That's my belief. I don't know if I'm correct.
They were just trying to pick and choose what they could utilize from the Norway example into American and Canadian prisons.
But did Norway take a lot of migrants, or are they still culturally?
It's pretty monochrome kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So you got Pennsylvania.
I love
North
the occasional
Dakota.
all-white country. I love it.
New York.
Why not?
New York and San Quentin. So first I was going, is this a liberal kind of thing, predominantly speaking? But then I heard about the North Dakota example. A Republican governor or something in North Dakota gave her carte blanche. Sounds good. Let's do it. Republican. So like things are changing, on a very slow level. She was so disturbed by the way Leanne Bursch, how they were conducting themselves to prisoners. And going on this trip, she was hanging out in a bar with another lady that works with her in the prison. She said to her, you know what? We're hurting people. We're not helping them. And she just broke down and she said, we have to do something different. So that's why they were there. It's beautiful.
As a conservative for the moment, I will tell you that one of the things that
compassionate conservatism.
Yeah, well, the thing that bothers me about many conservatives is that the way that they receive and project their religion is so my observation is that if you're a good Christian, you're really more focused on everything you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
You can notice what other people are doing, but it's not your job to torture or punish them for it. You have every right in the world to defend yourself. But one of the justified reasons for for many decades was the declining popularity of Christianity was this really toxic moralizing to the point that punishment and hatred was justified. So what you're telling me is very good news, because I think that was a mistake of the right in the United States for many decades. That's sort of punishing hatred towards people who have made mistakes.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Go online, check it out. North Dakota. It's phenomenal what's going on. Prisoners are like happier. They're not. The recidivism rate went down from 70% to 20% in Norway.
Really?
In Norway as an example.
Really?
And North Dakota has seen a decline also in hostilities and attacks on guards. Guards are happier. Spouses of people who work in are happier. I mean, can you imagine being married to some guy who's having the fear for his life every time he goes to work at a corrections institute? I mean, come on, at a prison? So it just blew my mind this whole thing. It was like, thank God, because I was thinking the same thing. Why can't they you can't leave the building while you're in prison. Well, do you have to beat them? I don't believe in vengeance when it comes to physical harm. I mean, okay, lock people up. I want to talk about Diddy today, and I want to talk about Kanye today. At some point.
Go for it.
Kanye. Okay, now I don't mean to be rude, but I just want to cover it before we end this. Okay, it bothered me the rap video he did about Hitler. He went back on it, and Bridget was saying on the Senate meeting, she was saying he's off his bed probably, and he's one of these guys who's. So I don't know. What do you think about that? His mental acuity, his mental state. He's categorically a musical genius. I was listening to his old rap stuff. Brilliant. Joe Rogan said, "Well, the Hitler one, it's a catchy tune, right?" But
So in general, I don't like hip hop as far as I'm concerned. Only poor people listen to it, and I don't want to be poor for the rest of my life, so I keep that out of my space. I also I've always believed, and I used to be ashamed to admit this, but now that I don't, because you have to understand, when I was a little kid,
The theme here is banning censorship.
My opinion of black people,
so don't forget,
is that they were royal, that they were regal, that they were well-educated, because the black people who I saw on television were like Bill Cosby, Maya Angelou, and they spoke in such beautiful ways. And even though I didn't like Bill Cosby, I mean, he did dress well and he did speak well. And I kind of thought, I had such a high opinion. But when hip hop rolled around, I was always very perplexed why otherwise intelligent and creative black people would embrace it, because it's clear to me that it's a psyop to ruin black people. It's clear to me, or at very least that it's a bunch of white, and this is going to be complicated for me because, I love being ethnically Jewish, a lot of Jewish people like enabling and indulging these self-destructive and toxic views. So in response to your question, I don't like any of the music of any of these people.
Okay.
I do remember Kanye West. So one of the 10 best interviews I've ever seen, and I'm talking everyone, politicians, musicians, everything. One of the 10 best interviews I ever saw. It's kind of like that magnificent interview that Charlie Rose did with Roseanne Barr. It was like the best interview ever because she was like in full college professor mode. And you really got to see how brilliant
I might have seen that. I used to watch Charlie Rose every day at 1:30 from PBS.
It was a great interview.
He's fantastic.
But Joe Rogan's interview with Kanye West revealed to me at his best. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if that was a state of being medicated or not medicated. As someone who was on 5 psychiatric medications at one point, now I'm down to 2, I have a conflicted relationship because I think that psychiatric medicine is wonderful. I also think that 99% of the people who prescribe it have no idea what they're doing and should have their prescription pads taken away from them. Whatever state Kanye West was in and whatever brought him to that state, when he was on the Joe Rogan show, he was an embodiment of living genius that had so many good ideas that he probably should have been in a presidential cabinet. Like everything that he said was beautiful, magical, interesting. In terms of this, because I haven't listened to it, maybe he's making some sort of ironic point.
I don't know, but he disavowed everything about anti-Semitism now. Now, is that because he's seeing that his market share, his brand recognition, as I say very sarcastically, can be affected by popularity?
My larger question is, why do people get up in arms when they, and this is to go into exactly what you want to talk about, which is censorship. Look, I like it. I love it, in fact, when people say things that are against what I believe in and the way that I want to live, because like when people are loudly racist, loudly anti-Jewish, loudly whatever, and I don't even like these words. I don't think that they're get to the
idiotic.
What's going on. But I like it when people are because I know who else to take my business to. I know like, okay, great. I'm going to let you do what you do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to walk away from you because I firmly believe, I don't believe that everyone's a racist and a sexist.
No,
I really do think that if people have more permission to say what they believe, they may find some communities of like-minded people who want to operate together, and why not? We need more communes. But for the most part, their business will suffer and they'll change their tune.
Right.
So I like it when people, and the thing is, if you don't like what someone says,
change the channel.
Why not? There's like, YouTube is like, it's like our contemporary electronic Library of Alexandria. Like, you can get a better university education through YouTube than you can get at Harvard at this point.
Especially today.
Yeah, and so the thing that I don't understand is why there's the controversy about it. You should understand from the outset that Kanye West is bipolar.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying.
You should further understand that it's difficult. It's very difficult to be a great artist without having a severe other mental disorder that you have to alchemize into creativity. And you should also know that the way to handle art is to either love it or ignore it.
You think the KKK has a fit with this kind of thing? Because they say, all right, we got a black guy on our side to hate Jews. And then he changes his mind. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. And then that KKK says, oh, he's not a real Jew hater.
Does the KKK exist anymore?
That's
I kind of think
that's the hilarious thing.
Ended all of that.
It's probably more of a punchline than anything else.
Look,
it probably don't exist.
I suppose everything exists. I suppose everything exists in small numbers.
It's probably like the Lions Lodge, like a local Elks Club, probably a bunch of guys walking around. But they're like, they're they're business guys now. Like David Duke was running for office, and
So here's the thing: if I
know.
was mayor of Hamilton, do you remember a few years ago there was this scandal because someone who allegedly was a Nazi was running for office?
Yeah, well, David Duke says he doesn't adhere to anti-Semitic beliefs anymore. He ran for office. Didn't he become a senator?
Well, first of all, if that's true, and if he's had a change of heart, he's probably someone who should be in office because most people don't change their point of view, and we should be honoring people who are willing to publicly change even when it makes them look foolish and causes them to lose their previous following. So I always joke that I have to leave Hamilton for New York City because if I'm here for 2 more years, I'm going to have to run for mayor, and there's not a single doubt in my mind with all of my personality and charisma that I'll win. But if I was mayor, what I would do is I would find that Nazi candidate and I would give him a job. Because what's interesting about Nazis is that they're so interested in their point of view, but so detached from the actual work of running a government, that I think that it would be a really delicious opportunity to have the rubber hit the road.
Yeah, and that it goes lines what we started with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. They both are new to the system of government. Well, more so on Elon Musk, obviously. But
what did you want to say about Diddy?
This whole thing is very interesting to me, and it's fascinating because I think the RICO case is horseshit. I mean, he's a piece of shit. He should go to jail for a couple of years for being a wife beater. It's on camera. I mean, but this whole RICO thing, sex trafficking, it's a little.
You don't think he was an Epstein?
No, I think he created the circumstances to be an Epstein with the money and the influence peddling and the amount of people that he has on a list that Epstein Island had in this, and except it was Diddy freak off parties, and he probably has a hit list of names in the culture, politics, and what have you to make a real. So he might get off in that way too, but there's no RICO case. That's nonsense.
I do think my suspicion is, and I actually believe that this had, not to be all Kanye West, I actually do have a deep sympathy for Hitler because it's clear to me that he was manipulated by various secret organizations. It's clear to me that his doctors were guilty of malpractice that ended up having genocidal global consequences. And, I'm serious about this. It's not a joke.
Okay.
I've looked at his art. You know how Hitler was a failure?
Yeah.
He was really good.
Yeah.
If his stuff was on Etsy today, it would sell.
Well, it's like that old hack joke that if he became a painter, he wouldn't have had World War II.
Yeah.
Or Charles Manson, if he sold a song, he wouldn't have killed people or had other people.
So I guess I do agree with Kanye West's point that that one of the best and most provocative ways to understand evil is to look at it from a place of sympathy. Not only sympathy, not letting people off the hook, but how did this happen? And I think that Hitler and Diddy are examples of what happens when you're a homosexual and you have a real big problem with it.
Just for the record, I categorically disagree with all opinions about Hitler.
Okay.
But what you're saying, I don't know if we should go to that far extent with a guy like Hitler who gassed 6 million fucking people.
Look,
so I'd have a hard time with that.
On my biological father's side, he's indirectly responsible for the death of my entire family, except for my biological father.
Well, I'm not saying that you agree with it. I'm just saying, even as a point of contention,
but what I'm saying,
even as a little bit, I disagree. But.
So I wouldn't say that he was evil. I would say that he was captured by an ephemeral spirit of destruction, chaos, and nihilism that was captured in his body. So that doesn't mean that he should be let off the hook.
No, I understand. I'm not advocating that you're...
But I want to know why that happened.
See, that goes back to what you were saying earlier about concepts of good and evil and influence and our own decisive making powers as to our... I hate the word agency. I hate all these stupid new words that we utilize today. It's way too much, but are we in firm control of our decision-making powers? Do we have free will? Do you believe in determinism? Do you believe in outside factors influencing behavior? Do you believe in social contagions?
What did you want to say about Diddy?
Fascinating. No, it's just that I find it. I think the biggest problem for Diddy is going to be having a jury be able to parse through this. Okay, he's a piece of shit who beat on women. He should be put away. But this is not a RICO case. Do you have enough people to be strong enough to make that argument, or are there going to be people who go along with just because of the day and age we are living in? You know, so that's an interesting thing.
It is.
Now how they pick juries very carefully. So they covered the ground, and it's good to cover the spread. Any real guy on that jury is going to roll his eyes and say, yeah, put him away for a couple of years, but this is not RICO. Then you're going to have women, hardcore feminist women, who are going to say, no, he did this. He led a situation to be able to be perverted because of his influence power.
I think Clive Davis had something to do with it. I do think it was an Epstein-like operation. I don't think that that's all it was. I think it was also being possessed by evil. Sometimes when you repress your sexuality, it comes forward in really, really, really ugly ways.
What's with all, sorry to interrupt, but what is with all of the homosexual activities that these rappers, who are all these bro alpha male figures?
Well, you see,
it's been coming out of this knowledge.
I was always a huge fan of Wendy Williams.
Interesting.
And I remember her 30 years ago saying that half of hip hop was gay. And I think that I hypothesize that when you're creative, sometimes homosexuality is part of the package. But as an artist who also is poor, you want to attract, and you're willing, because you are not properly raised, because you are in a fatherless home, you also are really Machiavellian, perhaps psychotic, and you are willing to, and if you emerge from a culture that has no problem with lying, then you can present yourself as anything you want because you want the money. Did I ever tell you the story about, so I worked for, the best employer that I ever had was a really brilliant product designer and architect who did a lot of these hip hop people's homes, showrooms, offices. She was such a creative genius. I really didn't behave well under her tutelage. I wish I had been different, but she's perhaps the greatest. She's definitely the greatest artist that I've ever worked with. I don't want to be too specific because I don't want to upset her or cause her harm, but let's just say that due to her clientele, she had certain exposure to certain people, and at one point she said to me, I'm never working for them again. And at the time,
no kidding,
I had no idea why. And then when I layer that with the fact that she was always very kind to me, but she would sometimes shift into this other personality and she would be kind of mean or cold, or she would get really nervous, which she had no reason. She had everything going for her. She was a genius. She was gorgeous. She was funny. She was the hardest worker you've ever seen. And now I wonder, was her decision to get away from certain people and her occasional outbursts of neurosis, I wonder if she was abused by someone or something. And because I have that in my background, and just because of the experience I have with that world, working there, I can't get away from the feeling that it's a psyop, that it's demonic, that it is a perfect example of large groups of people taking recreational drugs to such a point that they become collectively hallucinogenically crazy and destructive. What do you think?
Oh, it's fascinating. I was just listening to an interview with Tarantino on Rogan's podcast again. I listened to it a long time ago, and he asked him about Harvey, because Harvey produced all of Quentin's films.
How long ago was this?
This interview was about a year or two ago, I think, with Tarantino on Rogan's show.
Yeah.
And he said Harvey was like a father figure to me because he got all of my films made, and he didn't mess with them. And he released them the way I intended them to be made.
He really was the best producer.
I know. So how do you square that circle?
Well, it's the same thing as
You know,
Roman Polanski.
what we were just, I mean, another genius. People are writing off people's accomplishments too much based on their behavior.
One of the advantages of being more concerned with how art is received than how it's made, because you can hypothesize, I do it all the time, what went into a work being produced. But at the end of the day, you're always guessing, because a lot of times you can interview the artist and they don't really know why they're doing what they're doing. They say they do, but they don't. And it's more important to focus on its reception, because at the end of the day, people like Roman Polanski and Harvey Weinstein do the world more good than harm. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't go to jail if they've done things that are against the law. I don't have that French mentality of, oh, excuse them because they're great artists. But people need to get off their high horse and say that Harvey Weinstein's movies and Kanye West's and I'm not Kanye West is not been accused of, but when you have an artist that becomes very disliked by the public, it doesn't change whether or not their art is good.
It's like the Woody Allen fiasco. I don't care.
In fact,
I don't
you
care.
could view the art as the act of penance.
It's like Soon Yi. She's not a victim 40 years later. Like, fuck right off. Like, she loves this guy. You know what this is an example of? I said it before and I'll say it again. This is an example of a man being completely fucking oblivious to his surroundings. So Soon Yi was saying, really? You didn't know Mia Farrow wasn't, basically a whack job? She didn't use the word whack job. That's me paraphrasing. But she said, really? You didn't really, know what she was like with influence on her children? Because Mia Farrow was not Mother of the Year.
Yeah.
By any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, there's something about...
And Soon Yi is not a victim.
There's something about Ronan Farrow.
I don't like that guy.
There's something... I'm getting into this territory of
Frank Sinatra's
critical again. Okay, so look, did I ever tell you what Ava Gardner, Frank Sinatra's ex, said about him when he broke up with her and went with Mia Farrow?
No. Oh, yeah, I think so, but say it again. It was funny.
She said, I always knew he'd end up with a boy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and you know what? Being dumped by a woman like that could maybe turn you.
No, he wasn't dumped. He left her for Mia.
Okay, he left her. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know this story.
Which really makes that,
which makes it even more obvious. Yeah, sorry.
It's so funny.
Yeah, that's perfect. That really is beautiful, isn't it? No, I can separate the art and the artist. That doesn't mean, like you said, they shouldn't go to jail if they've done something wrong or, lose. Like the Louis C.K. thing was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
It was
absolutely
so
ridiculous.
Stupid. You've got women who could probably kick his ass. They were scared because they didn't want to lose production deals and they didn't want to lose his ability to help them in their careers. But they weren't scared of him.
So here's the thing: so all of that flap of comedians being accused of sexual assault brings something up for me, which is if you don't, as a woman, if you don't say knock it off.
Yeah. Get a frying pan.
By the way, have you ever noticed that there's never an Italian woman making these accusations?
Well, that's what Kim Opago used to say. You're never going to see this with an Italian working class woman or a black working class woman.
Yeah, so if you don't signal that it's not acceptable to you.
Like Casey Ventura.
Yeah. If you actually do the whole people-pleasing thing and you pretend to like it, how is that a crime?
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, was Harvey Weinstein guilty?
I don't know.
Did you see that Candace Owens series?
No, I didn't see any of it. Oh my God. He's a pig, obviously, but...
I assumed that he was guilty.
Okay.
I really, even though I thought that Rose McGowan, who spearheaded the whole thing, I thought that there was something off about her. I knew that there was something self-involved that was driving it.
Well, she's one of these nitwits who shaved her head for concept of feminism.
Well, she's beautiful.
I'm a feminist now because I look like a dyke. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's like, you're not embracing your sexuality, therefore you're all of a sudden
well, you know what?
Poster child for feminism?
The thing is, it deprived us of Rose McGowan as an actress, and she was a really great actress. And I haven't seen her in any.
She went off-road to the point where nobody's going to hire her. She's a pain in the ass.
But of course, look, I really like Candace Owens.
Kristen Stewart, too. She's turned into some kind of. She shaved her hair. She's looking like a bull dyke.
Well, is that still? Because I saw her on a few red carpets lately, and she's like wearing full-on Chanel.
Okay, maybe this is. Yeah, maybe I'm off my timeline.
I have a feeling that Kristen Stewart was captured by someone or something, and that she's jetted out of it because every time.
Okay,
the past 5 times I've seen her on a red carpet.
Well, this was a year ago.
She's been in gauzy, transparent Chanel dresses.
Yeah, no, I just meant the immediate
absolutely.
Response to the situation with Harvey Weinstein.
So look, so I want you to know.
My references are slightly dated.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I want you to know that I don't need to have agreement amongst my friends or the people that I absorb information and entertainment from.
It's more interesting.
When I look at Candace Owens, I think she's really wrong in some
I love Candace.
Ways.
Yeah.
But as a human being, it's like, wow, she's really going to do. That's a woman who you want to be producing kids.
Exactly.
And her brand of investigative journalism is really interesting because she doesn't, like Megyn Kelly, she states her politics rather than pretending she doesn't have any.
Right.
Yeah. And her series on the Weinstein case, which you have to watch.
Okay.
Did you see her series on Macron?
I haven't seen anything from her except for interviews with podcasters.
So I really had this moment where I disliked Candace Owens. I disowned her. And I was like, she's gone off the deep end. And it was the same time that she said Jordan Peterson went off the deep end. But then I saw these 2 series about topics where I thought she was being captured by the right. But the evidence is so convincing that Harvey Weinstein, the woman whose testimony jailed Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
There's like email after email after email where like she's flirting with him.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying that she didn't like it. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that it was necessarily a grift. I can't climb into her head. I don't know. But what I do know is if over the course of 10 years, all you send out is signals that you like the attention that you're getting.
Yeah. Well, there's so much going on here, we have to be sophisticated with our arguments here, like you are being right now.
Do we want to tell women that it's okay not? Do we want to tell women that how is it coherent for feminism to be okay with women not signaling disapproval?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Me,
I agree.
What it speaks to is this belief that women aren't capable of saying what they think, which is ridiculous. You and I both prefer female comedians on average to male comedians, and we love the way that they reveal their truths.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones today.
Obviously, women are more than capable of saying what they think and how they feel.
Yeah, I know. I agree completely. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing with this art and artist thing, what you're saying, and you get back to your thing on Bridget Macron. I don't want you to forget that because you wanted to talk about, and I don't know anything about her. But it begs to the question of our perception of European values with sexuality and our idiotic values. How can we be so sophisticated culturally speaking when it comes to, not culturally, but like business and technology, and yet we can be such crybabies when it comes to sex? And then conversely, in Europe, they're behind the times when it comes to commerce, and
they have terrible customer service.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, they can be so innovative when it comes to the culture.
There's a little
fashion,
bit of a culture
sexuality.
War. There's a little bit of a culture war going on between France. Do you know Giorgia Meloni?
No, I heard the name.
Oh my God. She's the most, I don't know whether she's president or prime minister of Italy, but she's amazing.
Oh yeah, okay, I do know her. Yeah.
She's amazing. She's strong. She's
Trump
bold.
likes her, yeah.
She has a really interesting view on migration. She's not okay with it. Many say that she's, along with Marie Le Pen. I actually don't know what Marie Le Pen's politics are, and I don't think that it's fair to judge someone on the basis of who their father is, especially when that father disowns the daughter, which is what her father did to her for being too progressive.
I was going to say, because he was hard right.
But there is a huge difference between Italian and French culture.
You just ask Amanda Knox.
Yeah. Well, Okay, so okay, you know what?
Sorry.
You're right. You're
Sorry.
No, you're right.
No, because every time I hear Italy, I don't, and I know it's debased to painting being a comic, but I swear to God, every time I hear Italy, I think I'm at it.
Italy tilts too much into conservatism to the point that it's suffocating, which is what the futurists were trying to do away with. But on the other hand, Italy's sentimentality. Did you know that Mussolini didn't consider Italians white? He considered Italians, Arabs, and Jews as being of one Semitic race. So it's really interesting that he led Italy into being part of the Axis. It's also interesting that Mussolini, until the very end, when he capitulated, Mussolini and all of his officers refused to exterminate the Jews.
Really? Yeah, I did hear that.
Italy also told Germany during World War II that if they persisted in their demands that Italy euthanize its retarded people, that it would declare war on Germany.
No kidding.
So Italy is a mixed bag, because on one hand it's really oppressive, but on the other hand, it's sentimental in a way that preserves the soul. France is different. France tilts into allowing for debauchery and a complete erasure of categories that threatens to put poor people and children at risk. And I say this as someone who used to think that the age of consent should be lowered to 12. I've reversed my position on that, because even though as a 12-year-old, I wanted nothing more than to have sex with a 40-year-old man. I understand that even if that happened to me and I wasn't damaged by it, that doesn't mean that that's the same way that it would be for everybody. And that since there's more children that would be harmed by that than helped by that it should be illegal.
Do you believe in that? Now, I know it's a bit of a joke. Bill Maher made that joke about there is a double standard. If a hot woman teacher blows you, it's not a big deal. But conversely speaking, then it's evil act upon a man praying against a young woman. So
my new stand-up set includes a joke that I'm still working on, and it runs something along the lines.
I do agree with him. If a hot woman blew me at 15, I don't think I'd be traumatized about it.
Okay, so it's very complicated, but my entry point is going to be this joke. So I think it's disgusting the way that certain factions of society try to recruit and groom children into their disgusting sexuality. Yeah. The way I see it, you should just kind of sit back and live your life and let them come to you.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I like that.
So here's the thing.
It's a progressive view.
So here's what I think of sex. I think that, well, we can tell from the popularity of pornography with incest themes that wanton sexuality involving all sorts of debauchery, violence, incest, and transgressions of social mores is probably lots of fun. But I believe that it drives people mad, and I believe that it can be categorized as dark and evil because it goes against what I believe to be the spiritual role and potential of human beings, which is to go outside to seek light,
right?
And I do, I think that, and so there's sex that brings darkness and destruction, and there's sex that brings positivity and light. And our lights went.
I think that's a sign
that you want to end.
No, I think it's a sign from God saying that we're finished.
Okay.
Unless there's something you can do.
Generally, or this episode?
This episode. Well, how long have we been going for?
An hour and 40 minutes.
Well, I guess someone's telling us we're finished.
Well, let's just finish this.
I'm just saying, do you believe in divine intervention is what I'm saying. Like my mom would say, okay, do you have a point? Or you're gonna be finished and ran you, do you have a point? My mom was old school.
Are you asking me that?
No, my mom used to say this to me, okay, you have a point soon? Are you coming to a point soon? Because I would talk. She'd say something like, she was the type of person who listened really well and then would say something and everyone would be like, oh my God. Because it would be one thing, like Joan Rivers, but one line, everybody would shut up because she'd listen.
Yes.
Because nobody listens anymore. I'm just as guilty of it, more so than most people.
Listen.
I talk so much.
You put up with me.
Well, we have a codependent relationship.
Okay, so look, let's talk about Brigitte Macron next
Yes.
time
Okay.
after you've watched
Yes.
the
Oh,
miniseries.
that's a good point.
Because if nothing else, you will be impressed by Candace Owens' untapped talent as a stand-up comedian.
Okay. Now, what's that thing about Weinstein? Is that a special thing she did, or is that just on a
two
podcast?
miniseries. Each one was approximately 6 episodes.
Oh.
One was on Brigitte Macron, one was on Harvey Weinstein, and the Harvey Weinstein one culminated with a final episode that's only available on her website. It's free, but it's available on her website, in which she interviews Harvey Weinstein.
No kidding.
And she tells him to his face, "I think you're a disgusting human being.
Wow.
And I think you're innocent."
No kidding.
I think that's great journalism.
That is, that's really good. I like journalism. That. Do you know who Oriana Fallaci is?
No.
Okay, this is someone you need to know. Write her name down, please.
How do you spell it?
Please and thank you. Oriani, O-R-I-A-N-I, I think. Oriani. She's Italian, obviously Italian. Fallaci, F-A-L-L-A-C-C-I, I think. She was a journalist back in the day. She wasn't a typical journalist. She refused to put on a headscarf and fucking interviewing Arafat, okay? She was the go-to.
Oh, I remember her.
She's the one. She's the famous Italian journalist who went balls deep, excuse the metaphor here.
I love that phrase. Balls
deep in interviewing people and not giving a shit about her political opinions being known. She would attack like a dog in interviews. She was fantastic.
What decade was she?
She oh my God. She died about 10 years ago, approximately. In her 60s. You would love her. She was dating this guy who was in the resistance and like Italy. Like, she led a life, rock star kind of life, hard drinking, hard Scrabble, chain smoker, Italian, like, through and through.
Has anyone done a biopic yet?
I don't know. I don't think so. She's not well known enough in circles that make those kind of things. And if she was, it would be people like Ben Shapiro would know who she is.
Yeah.
She's a niche kind of person.
Although I will say, I'm of the opinion that when you visit other countries or when you move to other countries, that it is your job to honor the customs and traditions of that culture. And because Canada is so reticent to even articulate what its culture is, it makes it almost impossible for migrants to successfully assimilate, even if they want to.
She almost gave Kissinger a fucking heart attack the way she went after him in an interview. She held on to her ideals and her philosophies and integrated them within interviews.
Okay, but do you think it's appropriate to go to another country and to not wear the dress that country requires?
I think if you're interviewing a piece of shit like Arafat, I don't think it matters. That's my opinion. But, Arafat, he's not a goddamn freedom fighter. He's a fucking terrorist, He was playing fast and loose with the PLO to begin with. So,
you know what he once said? He said the Jews he either said Jews are better than us or Jews are more moral than us. But he said, but we have to fight because they're too stubborn.
Yeah, and look,
it was a very weird statement.
And look at the way those people, but look at the way they always reduce all their arguments to, we should kill all the Jews, from the river to the sea. It's like, okay. At the end of the day, that's always your message, to kill the Jews. Maybe if you cut that down, maybe people might, not have such a hard time with you. When that's your fucking, what's that called in English literature? I forgot the phrase, but when that's your, the sine qua non, all or nothing kind of attitude. I mean, how can you possibly have a conversation with somebody when your phrase at the end of the day is to kill all the Jews? Okay, how do you have a conversation with a person like that?
There was a group of very brave Palestinians who late last week or early this week put on Instagram or X a letter saying, "Please liberate us from Hamas."
Douglas Murray said in an interview, he said 18 years they could have turned the country around. They voted for Hamas in. They want to have it both ways. They want to say the Jewish people, Israeli, are oppressing us. Even though the Israeli people encouraged them to go work in Israel.
Look, if you go on camera or you go on social media and that if you say anything against Hamas or any of those other groups, that your family's going to be tortured in front of you and then you're going to be murdered, wouldn't you lie and say that?
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, the reason why they defeated the Iron Dome was because they had double agents working within the people who were supposedly working in Israel. So you had guys who were double agents from Hamas working with other Israelis and other Arabs together, and they were selling out their work area, the work knowledge of what was where things were.
I don't like to say that I agree with everything this person says, but I've come to the place where I think the person who I agree with most right now is Douglas Murray.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what he was saying.
Because it's not just about human beings. It's also about if this side wins, what's going to happen to the rest of the world?
Right.
And it's a death cult.
Yeah.
And well, if Israel wins, what's the world going to get? I don't know. High tech, gorgeous people,
democracy,
and desalination.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then
exactly.
Then there's the fact that the majority of people who are living under Hamas rule hate it.
Yeah.
And then there's also the fact that Hamas and organizations like it manipulate the talent that white people have for guilt.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they, babies as human shields, and I'm not saying
hiding weapons in domestic homes.
I'm not saying that Israel's perfect. I mean, it seems to me that most of the newspapers in Israel are not really happy with their own prime minister, but
they're hiding weapons in hospitals, underground tunnels, everywhere. I mean,
there are certain people who think that it's just about. So what bothers me about the anti-Israel side is that whenever you ask any of them, okay, so what do we do?
They don't have an answer.
They only say, not this. You ask Israel how to end it, or people who support Israel, they'll give you like 10 different ways to handle it. You have a faction that wants a new country. You have a faction that wants, total annihilation. But you have like different points of view and actual offers.
There was protests on October the 7th about Israel's measured response. We hope that Israel is going to have a measured response. They're in a war, for Christ's sake. I mean, they're doing targeted approaches. They're trying not to harm civilians. They're going house by house.
They announce a week in advance.
Yeah, this is not like what they purported to be. I'm saying, on the left, the left thinks everything Israel does is bad. Everything Hamas does is good. I mean,
and I'm not saying that everything that Israel does is good.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
I am saying that it's not just about. Yeah, okay, I'm going to put it out there. I have a problem with the way that the United Nations has. I guess that means you're done.
I thought we were finished.
No, we're still talking.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm going to wrap it up with.
Forgive me. I just realized I thought it was over because we lost the feed there of the lights.
No,
that was just light.
That was just light.
Okay.
So we're going to wrap it up in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I want you to have the final word.
I'm not used to doing these things, so this is wild. I'm doing like 2 hours.
You're really good at it.
Sitting down.
You're really good at it.
Sorry, you're excellent at being a host.
No, you're a wonderful co-host.
Well, thank you.
But here's the thing.
There.
It strikes me. So first of all, I have a theory that the Nazis won World War II. They were absorbed into the space program. They escaped to Argentina. No one in intelligence ever believed that Hitler committed suicide. And I think that a lot of the global corporations, venture capital firms, and family offices that we have, I really do feel like and I know that Nazi sentiment is what re-energized the hatred of Jews in the Middle East, because under the Ottoman Empire, things weren't like this. I'm not going to. I don't live in this fantasy that it was always hunky dory, but there were parts of the Middle East and North Africa, and Sicily is also a great example. Well, until that war, but the point is, coexistence has happened, and it can happen again. Okay, but actually, I lost my point. So the last 3 minutes of this podcast go to you.
I don't even know where to start. I feel like I've been through interrogation or something that I enjoyed, so you figured it out. I haven't done this kind of thing forever, so just a couple times with you.
You're the Sharon Stone.
I've always wondered.
You're the Catherine Trammell in this dialogue. Yes.
That was one of my favorites. That was an amazing movie.
That was a great movie.
Have you seen
that movie? Holds up really well.
Have you heard the Camille Paglia commentary?
No.
There's a Camille Paglia commentary.
Do you have it?
No, not now. I used to have it, but you can find it online probably. Basic Instinct commentary, Paul Verhoeven's film.
By the way, I saw the trailer 2 weeks ago for Basic Instinct 2.
Well, you mean 3? There's another one?
No, I never saw Basic Instinct 2, but I saw the trailer for the first time.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty bad.
I mean, when the trailer looks bad.
Yeah, well, it's not. Is she in it? She's the only one in it. Yeah, the rest. That's like The Last Seduction. There was a. Do you know Last Seduction? Linda Fiorentino.
I heard of it. I never saw it.
I think she had an issue with Harvey also, and she was blackballed because she didn't play long. She didn't play long. She was in that great film that I don't even remember the name of because I don't really see it. I just know of it. Scorsese's was it his first film
Really?
Or second film? Yeah, it was in New York City. It was like Griffin Dunn was in it. What was it called?
Who was later in Who's That Girl?
Yeah, exactly. And his mom, his aunt is his aunt Joan Didion. His uncle was Griffin Dunn, or I don't know the family lineage. All I know is in his family, Joan Didion, the famous writer, is either his aunt or I don't know. Goddamn New York high society Venn diagram, a tree branch of family. I don't remember, but Griffin Dunn, though, he was in that movie, played the lead. Linda Fiorentino was in it. It's a real New York film. Is it called Actors? After Dark? I don't know, Actors something. I don't know. Anyways, she was a blackball industry. She was in a famous film called Last Seduction. She was in film noir, where Peter Berg was in it too. You know who Peter Berg is? Okay. And Bill Pullman, the great Bill Pullman. Yeah, it was just.
Who you also look kind of like.
It was a classical. Thank you, because I'm minus 50 pounds. But thank you. Bill Pullman was one of those great actors, character actor. I'm just making a statement that she was another one sidelined by the industry, like Lara Flynn Boyle too. Or I think she just lost opportunities because she got disinterested in the business, like Bridget Fonda, who got back.
I hear Sherilyn Fenn is back.
I saw her on Shameless. She was on the last couple of years before the end of the season of Shameless.
Really?
After seeing her on Twin Peaks, this vivacious, beautiful woman, and she's still attractive, but she's kind of like gnarly, kind of working class broad now, shooting from a hip.
Well, maybe that was for the role. Though the last time I saw her,
so weird.
Yeah, it is strange. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting and provocative episode of the SPS podcast. I am Fran Lebowitz, and I have been speaking today to Hunter S. Thompson. Thank you and good night.